Christ be all around me. Oh, 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 Christ be all around me. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me, Christ be all around me. Above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me, Christ be all around me. Oh, 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 Christ be all around me. Oh, oh, Christ be all around me. We will see the holy city come descending like a bride, with the Lamb of glory seated on his throne. A new earth and a new heaven, with its gates thrown open wide, when the King of Zion comes to claim his own. Till your kingdom comes in power, saints and angels shout amen. Father, we will be your no more sorrow, no more night, and the chains will all be broken. No more hunger, no disease, only freedom when the darkness turns to light. Till your kingdom comes in power, saints and angels shout amen. Father, we will be your kingdom until then. Let us be a holy nation, known for justice and for grace.
our King. He is King of the now and the forever. So we're worshiping King Jesus this morning. Well, welcome to Highland. If you're visiting with us, we're honored to have you with us. Starting a new series today on kindness. A year of kindness. Kindness is my superpower is the name of the new series. Shane will unfold that in just a moment. During the next few songs, if you would like to write out a prayer, we have what we call prayers of the people, so you can come to the front, tables around the room, write out a prayer while we worship, while we sing. Also, if you want to pray with someone through those doors, and to your right is a prayer room where someone would love to pray with you. Let's continue great worship in a great new year that God has blessed us with. We'll think of 10,000 reasons why he's blessed us. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me,
Himself for us. Come because you want to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Come because you want to experience the mystery of God's grace.
Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. What proves his love for us? That while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Come to me, all
Supper, Jesus took the cup of wine. And after giving thanks, he gave it to them and said, "Drink this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for you and many for the forgiveness of sins. Whenever you drink it, remember me."
For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you will proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. Church, we have come into the Lord's Spirit. We eat the bread of heaven and drink the cup of mercy. God is the one who transforms us to see with the eyes of Jesus, hear with the ears of Jesus, and speak with the mouth of Jesus, so that we can be the body of Christ in the world, proclaiming the good news of God's restoration of all things. Come, Lord Jesus. Amen.
pray over with great care and with the confidence that God will bring restoration and healing.
I was especially blessed by prayers from children this week. Thank you for Jesus. Please help the homeless. Thank you for answering all my prayers. Dear God, I want to praise you. I love you so much. My love is overflowing with gratitude. Thank you to you parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles and others who are teaching our children how to pray. These children's prayers, as well as those from adults, are deep cries of our heart to God. Please join me in prayer. God, you are mighty. You are wondrous. You are kind and merciful, and so much more. We are mindful of our brothers and sisters at the West Freeway Church who experienced unspeakable tragedy last Sunday. Give them courage, comfort, and peace as only you can. Show us ways that we can minister to them and bless them. Prompt us, God, to pray for these dear brothers and sisters in their journey of healing. And now, a prayer that someone wrote last week. We pray for blind eyes to be opened, for blessings, for redemption, for you, God, to show up like never before and soon. Finally, Father, we ask that you accept our offerings today as our desire to join you in the work you are doing in this world. Give us wisdom to be good stewards of the money, talents, and energy you've loaned to us. Help us give lovingly and expectantly as we join you to restore Highland, Abilene, and the world. In the powerful name of Jesus, amen.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is the failing love that
going to be for us,
and even more importantly, through us in 2020. So if you're ages 3 through 5, you may be dismissed to his kids at this time. The rest of you, if you would, please stand up and greet those around you, especially if you don't know the person. Introduce yourself. Give them a warm welcome to Highland.
Well, my bad for missing the old song. I mean, like I know what it is too, because it's that.
Good morning, Highland. It's good to see you here this morning, especially on this new year. And as I was reminded, a new week, a new month, a new decade. It's good to have you here. And we are especially glad you are here if this is part of some sort of new commitment that you've made this year. You decided, you know what, I'm going to get my life back together with my family, or I'm going to get my life back together with my church and with my God. We are so glad you've made that decision, and we want to congratulate you for that. We think that's a brilliant idea, and we are proud of you. And so there are some ways that we can help you get plugged in. One of the realities about our resolutions is they don't really happen unless you do something about it. I can't tell you how many diets I've been on that didn't work because I didn't change my diet, and but you making this step is really helpful. But the reality is it's really difficult for you to go this alone. Long-staying commitment to change involves community. It involves people that are walking beside you, helping you make these commitments, helping you find the right path. And so there's a few things that this church does that we want you to know about. First of all is our Restore Highland groups are starting off again. We're going to have a launch lunch in just a few weeks. I believe that's January 26th. That's going to be at 12:30 out in the atrium area. It's a free lunch for you just to come and hear about what our Restore Highland groups do. It's forming community. It's about getting together. It's about finding those people that are going to encourage you when it gets rough and celebrate with you when it's great. And this is one of those ways that you can commit yourself to keep your commitments to God. Another thing that a lot of people focus on at the beginning of the year is their marriage. And here at Highland, we are very thrilled about Reengage. It's a class, it's a community that helps you keep your commitment to your spouse. It helps you dig in a little bit deeper and find those places and ways where you can grow together. And there's a newcomers meeting on January 6th, the 13th, and the 20th. You can see the information up on the screen. I believe out in the atrium, there's a big banner that you can find there and find out more information if that's something that you and your spouse like to do. I want to be honest with you, for all of you that have just made that commitment and you're here. Like I said, we are so proud of you, but it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets better. When you walk with Christ, when you learn to be a disciple and you're following Jesus, it doesn't mean that just automatically, magically, everything's just, rainbows and unicorns. It's going to get a little bit harder before it gets better. But it is the most meaningful experience that you will ever do in your life. We're going to start a new series this morning that Luke, if you were here last week, kind of preambled for us. It's based on this book called The Kindness Challenge. And I have a very personal connection to this book. And we're going to be looking at this for about the next 5 weeks. And if you are interested in this book, we have some copies for you They're absolutely free. All you have to do is come down at the end of the service to right over here and find me. There's one string attached, but it's going to be a very easy string. And so come and find me if you'd like this book, or if you want to buy it and kind of follow along with us. That's a great idea. The reason that we're doing this series is because my wife found this book and she read it. This was about 18 months ago, and all of a sudden, my life was changing. Everything was better. And I thought, great. I'm really rocking this life thing. I've been killing it. You know those diets where I never had to change anything, and I didn't get thinner? Well, my life is getting better and I haven't changed anything. It wasn't because of some sort of magic. It was because of Natalie. Natalie, step by step, day by day, was improving our marriage. And I got to be honest with you, for like the first 2 weeks, I had no idea. Because she took the kindness challenge. So, try it out. See what happens. Kindness is one of those virtues that's becoming more and more absent in our culture, and I'm not sure why. It's kind of a mystery to me why kindness seems to be disappearing from our collective vernacular, but I know why it's disappearing for me personally. At least I knew why it was disappearing about 2 years ago. It's because I woke up at about 1:30 and we had a 6-week-old and we had a 2-year-old, and we were exhausted. And so we developed this rule that nothing said after 1:30 in the morning counted. It was just blanket grace. That's the only way we could get through it. And you're going to just forget it. But then the baby starts getting more sleep, and we start getting more sleep. And we kind of realize we just can't keep this habit of being unkind anymore. When I was in California, I had a friend who was moving to Arkansas, and we were talking about some of the differences because I had come from Arkansas to live in California. And the benefits are the same benefits that we experience here in Abilene, that there's barely any commute and there's hardly any ever waiting in places like parking lots, and most of the places that are public, like parks, are fairly empty, and you can go and not have to worry about it. You never have to really wait in line most of the time for restaurants, unless you're going to the local or it's Sing Song weekend. If you go to Abuelo's on Sing Song weekend, forget it. You're going to be waiting 2 hours. But most of the time, it's pretty easy. And there's this apocryphal story that happened about the city of San Jose. There was this giant mall that ran right next to a very kind of small street, but that small street connected very quickly to one of the biggest highways that went through town. And so this giant mall, very thin artery, giant highway. And most of the time, it was no big deal to be at that stoplight where you got out of the parking garage to get on that little street to get on the giant highway, because there just wasn't that much traffic in and out of the mall, except for the Friday after Thanksgiving, when everyone goes to the mall. And someone forgot to change the light that keeps that traffic on that very small artery moving quickly. And there suddenly became cell phone calls from people in the parking garage asking what was going on, because they had been stuck in the parking lot for 3 hours trying to get out. People's gas tanks were running out of gas. The batteries in their car were dying. Not like their car batteries, it's because a lot of them have electric cars in California. Their batteries were dying. They couldn't get out of the parking lot because this light hadn't been reprogrammed. And that's just kind of the reality of what it's like to live in California. There's always traffic all the time. One time I went to this place called Santana Row, and it has an 8-story parking garage and a lot of kind of fancy stores there. I don't shop at any of those stores, but I wanted to get some takeout from one of the restaurants. And so I drive up into that parking garage, and I go around and around and around and around and around. And they had this fancy system where they had a sensor that would tell you if somebody was in that spot. I think you may have seen those in some other places where if the spot is empty, it's green, but if it's not, it's red. And I would pull up to the level on the parking lot, and I would just kind of gaze and see absolutely no green and just go straight to the next one. I was circling in that parking lot with about 200 other cars for like 25 minutes before I found a spot. And eventually, I get to the place where I can park, and I get mad, and I'm going down to the restaurant, and I'm going to get my takeout, and I know that takeout is already cold before I'm even going to pick it up because it took me so long to get there. And I get to the counter, and I had to wait like 90 seconds for that poor counter person to come up to me. And I stand there, and I don't even realize I did it. I drum my fingers. And then I see her turn around the corner, and she's headed right to the counter. And I can tell by just the way that she's walking that she has had an incredibly busy shift. She is exhausted. There was a lot of things that were going to go wrong. And you know what I was about to do? I was about to give her a piece of my mind. Right before I handed her the gift certificate that was going to pay for my meal because someone from church had given it to me. But I think there's times and seasons that take the margins of our lives and just shrink it down. Most of us have a little bit of margin in our day, a little bit of space in our lives. But there are times in your work, and there are seasons of the year where you just have too much to do, and there's too many things that the kids are doing, and there's, excuse me, too much travel for the holidays. And even though our workforce has become extremely more efficient in the way that they're productive at work, it hasn't slowed down the amount that we have to do every week. It still takes me more hours than I have in the day to get everything done. It's just that I feel more stressed because there's way more to do. And one of the things that disappears first when you have too much to do, when you know you're running late, when you haven't had enough sleep, is kindness. And then you pile on top of that the social situation that's happening in America today, or the political situation that's happening in America today, where there is an erosion of decency in the public speech, and we don't have a lot of role models about what it looks like to be kind to one another when things are stressful. But what we have to remember as followers of Christ is that kindness is one of the fruit of the Spirit. That means it's one of the manifestations of what it looks like when God's Spirit is in us. If we are following Jesus, kindness is not an option. We don't get to choose to be kind if we are choosing Jesus. But I want us to see that it's not just that kindness is a reflection of Christ, but what I want us to realize is that kindness also has a benefit to us. Kindness really is a superpower. Okay, imagine this situation. It's Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and you forgot something at Walmart, and you pull into that parking lot, and it does take you a couple of laps around that giant lot to find a place, but you finally get in, and you have to face the crowds, and you battle through, and it's pretty exhausting, and you get to your car, and you're about to pull out, and just as you're pulling out, someone rips down that parking lot aisle, and they're going way too fast. And you have to slam on your brakes, and they have to slam on their brakes, and your adrenaline immediately just shoots through the roof. You were tired to begin with. You're a little exhausted. And you think to yourself, I'm going to get out of my car, and I'm going to say a few words. Or at least offer a few nonverbal communicative gestures about how I'm feeling in this moment. What's their reaction when you do that? What's your reaction to their reaction? What happens for the next 45 minutes of your day? I don't know about you, but I would replay what happened over and over in my head with lines like, yep, they deserved it. I told them. I hope they learned their lesson. Or you think, oh, I should have. I could have. I don't know, grumble. Meanwhile, you walk through the door of the next place that you're supposed to be. And as you walk through that door, someone who needs you to be Jesus to them, and you're just not in that mental or emotional or spiritual position to love them the way you ought. Maybe it's your kid. Maybe it's your coworker. Maybe it's somebody else on the street who just desperately needs your help. Now, back that story up and replay it again. You get in your car, you're already tired, you're a little bit frustrated. You begin to back it out. Somebody whips down that aisle going way faster than they're supposed to be. You slam on your brakes, they slam on their brakes. And instead of giving them a piece of your mind, you give them a gesture like, sorry, my bad. You apologize. I didn't see you. What's their reaction to your reaction? Now, it might be, yeah, right, you're sorry. And you just let that roll off you. That's no bother. There's no worry there. You even double down with kindness and you say, yep, you're right, I'm totally sorry. That was totally my fault. Or you say, I'm very glad that we didn't have an accident, and I hope that the rest of your day goes better. Dollars to donuts, what will happen next is, yeah, I was going too fast too. And then what happens for the next 45 minutes? Because you walk through that door, and that's someone that needs you, you have the ability to be present to them. You are able to be there. You are able to be the hands and face and feet of Jesus in a way that you were not able to be there before. Kindness is a superpower. If you want to talk about real superheroes, kindness can melt walls. This is like Superman superpower. And we're going to geek out on comic books just a little bit in this series. That's just a personal preference of my own. Has nothing to do with you or this series, frankly. Superman is fascinating because he gets more and more powerful as the decades go by. When he begins in 45 and in the 50s, he's not quite the godlike presence that he is in the 90s and the 2000s. But one of the things that he has is this ability to use his vision to melt things. He can melt walls just by looking at them intensely. Which, if you watch Supergirl, which is kind of an interesting comic book show, but you watch it before they put in the special effects, she can melt walls too because she's from the same planet. But the way that she does this without the special effects added in is like this. And things just melt, right? Just intensely stares. I think that's what it says in the script. Stares intensely. And then things melt. And it's kind of a lame power if you don't have the special effects in. The other, if you don't like DC, Cyclops, is the guy that has that power in the Marvel world. And I always identified with Cyclops because he always wanted to do the right thing and follow the rules. And he was never as cool as Wolverine or any of the other X-Men because he was always like the stick in the mud. But he had the ability to melt walls. If someone is frustrated at you, if someone is angry at you, if someone's having a terrible day and it has nothing to do with you, and all they can see is that wall that's blocking their vision, they're effectively blind. They can't see reality. And if in that moment you are kind to them, you poke a hole in that wall and it changes things. The most powerful miracle God can perform is a changed heart. The most powerful thing that God can do in this world is not raising the dead, it's not healing the sick, it's not producing tons and tons of food for a crowd. It's the power of a changed heart. And the most amazing thing about that power is that God does it all the time. He's always calling people back to him, into relationship with each other. Kindness, for whatever reason, is a key that unlocks that door for God. And when you embody Jesus, you are kind to a stranger, or you're kind to a loved one, or to someone that has that wall up. When someone who has their defenses ready, they've strapped on that spiky armor, and they're ready to fight at a moment's notice, when you are kind to them, it opens this hole in that armor. And I don't know how it happens, but I've seen it happen over and over again. When that hole is open, God's Spirit pours through that hole, and it changes things. Kindness is a superpower. It's the most underutilized fruit of the Holy Spirit that we have, because kindness is love in action, even to people who don't deserve it. Kindness beats nice. Have you ever known anyone that was nice to you? I want us to think about the difference about that for a second, the difference between kindness and nice. Have you ever heard anybody say, you need to be nice to your cousin because she's family? Or at your party and your spouse leans over and say, I need you to be nice to him. He's married to the VP of my company. Nice guys finish last. Nice guys get friend zoned. Kind guys get the girls. And let me tell you why. It's because nice is a reaction to power. I don't want to do this. I don't feel like I have to do this, but I'm going to do it because they are connected, because they are family, because they can help me advance. Or if I'm not nice to them, they could hurt my career. Nice is an appeasement to power, and all it does is create a barrier between you and the other person. Because you're not being authentic with them. You're not being your authentic self. You're pretending so that you can get what you want. It's an external reaction to the power around you. Kindness, on the other hand, is an expression of empathy and love. Kindness is seeing someone else's circumstance for what it is. Looking past that false front that they're presenting, that they are smart or that they are capable or that they've got everything under control. People just throw that stuff up as a reaction to insecurity. When you find someone that's desperately trying to project power, it's because on the inside, deeply, they are a child who is terrified of what's happening. That's just a defense mechanism so that they can try to heal their own hurt. Even the richest and most powerful person in America, on the inside, wants to be known, and they desire kindness from others. Now, you can be nice to anybody. Guys think that when they are nice to girls, it'll get them what they want. Do you see the problem in that statement? If I'm nice to someone, I get what I want. It's a power play. It's this transactional bargain that puts on the appearance of acceptance and love as a bargaining chip. That might be the most antithetical thing to the gospel that we do on the weekly basis, is being nice to someone. But when you are kind, when I see you for who you are, and I'm going to love you for who you are out of my authentic self, not because I want something out of you or because I expect to get something from you, but because that's who God calls me to be, that can change the world. That can save your marriage. Kindness always beats nice. Jesus expresses this best in Luke chapter 6, verse 27, where he says, "But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not even withhold your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not take. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you." And I think we take that last sentence and we put an asterisk there. And if you go down and you look at the fine print of the Bible as you'd like to write it, it says something like, as long as they reciprocate. I will do to others as they would have them do to me, as long as it doesn't cost me anything. As long as in 2 actions they start treating me better. But that's not what Jesus says. Jesus says, treat others as you want to be treated. Be kind to them. Express love to them. In fact, don't react when someone tries to hurt you. Reaction is so rarely kindness. I don't know if you can actually react in kindness. Reaction is niceness. Somebody hurts you, somebody tries to take something from you, somebody tries to ruin you. Instead of reacting to them, treat them with kindness. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Or even better yet, treat them the way God has treated you. He goes on to say in Luke chapter 6, in verse 32, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, lend, expect nothing in return. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Paul in Romans quotes the Old Testament, and what he says about be kind to your enemies, and in doing so, you will heap burning coals on their heads. And I think if you don't think about that verse very deeply, it sounds extremely passive-aggressive. I mean, is that being kind or is that being mean? Is that being loving or is that being hurtful? I'm going to be kind to you so that I can hurt you. Sounds a little passive-aggressive. But I don't think that's what Paul or the Old Testament means. I think what Paul is doing there is referring back to the book of Isaiah. Do you remember in Isaiah chapter 6, Isaiah receives this call from God and he has this vision and he's transported into the throne room of God. And God says, who are we going to send? Who's going to carry this message? And Isaiah says, I can't do it because I come from a people of unclean lips and I am a person of unclean lips. And then the angel comes and takes a burning coal from the altar of God and touches Isaiah's mouth and says, see, now you can carry the message. You've been sanctified. And I think that's the sense in which Paul is talking about when he talks about heaping burning coals on the heads of your enemies through kindness. He's not saying to torture them by being nice to them. What he's saying is when you are kind to someone else, you partner with God to begin the process that will eventually lead them back to God. It's the process that begins their sanctification. If you love your enemies, eventually you'll have no more enemies to love. If you are kind to those who hurt you, eventually you won't have anybody left to hurt you. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Because the truth of this reflective statement is loving others is how you love yourself. If in your marriage or in your relationships you're always trying to put your needs and your preferences and your desires first, if everything is solely about you, either from your intentional acts or just your own unintentional behavior, if you try to make it all about you, you're going to end up alone. It is the paradox of the way of Jesus, and it's the paradox of the church that the way we love others and the way you empty yourself out for others is the way you teach others to love you and the way you find fulfillment. It's the wisdom of Jesus. I love that the most frequent subject of the verb kind in the Bible is God. When I was preparing this series and I was looking through the scripture, the stories where someone is kind to someone else, and we're going to look at more deeply at some of those stories as we go further on, I was impressed by how often God is the subject of kindness. God is the one who is loving kindness. God who is kind. God who shows kindness. God's loving kindness lasts for generations, is poured out for humanity. Over and over, one of the central attributes about God is that God is kind. Because God cannot help but express his love. God cannot help but express his love. It is who he is. He can't just sit back and wait to see if someone else is going to love him first. He can't just sit back and wait to see if someone else is going to be worthy of his love through some sort of obedience so that he can show them good grace. God can't help but express his love. And the best expression of God's loving kindness is Jesus. Think about the stories that Jesus tells. Think about how Jesus displays kindness. This week, go through the Gospels and try to find a place where Jesus is not kind. Try to find a place where Jesus is nice, where he's trying to appease or obtain power for his own sake. Jesus is never nice, but he is always kind. So I want to challenge you to do a couple of things this week. When someone is mean to you or someone seems like they're out to get you, if you know what their insecurity is or you don't, it doesn't really matter. I want you to kill them with kindness. I really hope that the live stream didn't drop out right there. I think that's a really bad edit. I want you to kill them with kindness. Respond to their shade. Respond to their evil glance. Respond to their snip, to anything that they do with kindness, and see what happens. Not only do you respond to them with kindness, you respond to everyone around them about them that way too. If you're in a meeting with your boss and it just really rakes you over the coals and you're being treated unfairly, and then 2 hours later at the water cooler, some coworker comes up and they want to talk bad about your boss, not only do I want you to be nice to your boss, I want you to be nice about your boss to your coworker. You say nothing negative. Because they're going to wait for you to jump on that complaint train and gripe with you, because they want to build a sense of solidarity with you by dumping on somebody else. But you say nothing. Rather, you dig deep and try to find something positive to say in that moment. And see what happens. When your spouse stays out too late again, in that moment, be kind and see what happens. React with kindness. Kill them with kindness and see what happens. And then I want you to let me know. How did it go for you? How did it change the next 45 minutes? And how did God use the next 45 minutes in your life for his glory? The second thing I want you to do is to be proactive in kindness. Kindness is an action out of empathy, and it's out of love. God is love. So you're acting out of the love that God has given you when you are proactive with kindness. We're going to talk about in the next few weeks the best way to aim kindness so that somebody else can feel it. And, okay, spoiler, it's really complicated. This is how Jesus does it. It's really difficult to do. You ask somebody. That's how Jesus engages in kindness. What do you want me to do for you? So that might be a hint. You ask them. But here's one idea. After your spouse or after your kid has gone to bed, you only have to outlast them for like 5 minutes. After they're in bed and you know that they're asleep, what I want you to do for 3 days in a row every night is text them something you appreciate about them. Text them something that you're proud about them. Text them about a time where you saw them doing something that made you feel loved or feel good, or you were proud for the way they handled that situation. Text it to them. Because the first thing that everyone does when they wake up in the morning is they grab their phone and they look at it, right? Before I put on my glasses, I'm looking at my phone. And the first thing, imagine what happens when the first thing that your partner or your kid or that person you're trying to be kind to sees is a compliment from you. The way that you're proud to be partnering with them. Just see what happens. And let me know. Do it 3 days in a row every day this week. Now, it may not be that text messages are their thing or they're not your thing, and so you're going to need to modify. Maybe it's writing a note and you put it next to their coffee cup. You figure it out. The first thing that they experience in the morning is a note from you. Kindness is our superpower. It might be the thing that you could do to improve the quality of your life the most this year. But I think it can do more than that. I think it can change the world. Will you please stand for our benediction? The God who in his loving kindness sent his Son to die is the God that has empowered you with the Spirit to be light and salt to everyone this week. And so as you go about your day in parking lots and in restaurants and at your job, kill someone with kindness. Go in peace.
33 minutes.